Hey everybody, I just wanted to make another video because we have several students who are still kind of on the fence, if you will, about the difference between declaring a function and calling a function. The way that I like to think about it is declaring the function is basically writing a recipe, is one analogy I like, where you are creating the recipe. So if I'm going to make a cake, I know that I have to have certain things in that cake. I need to have some flour, I need to have some sugar, I need to have some coloring, I need whatever the heck goes into a cake. You need eggs, you need milk, you need whatever is going into your cake. You might have some fruit in there. Whatever it is, you're going to make a cake. So this is my recipe for the cake. I tell it, hey, you need to pass in some things, some ingredients, and then I'm going to do stuff with the ingredients and spit out a cake. That's what this is. This is me defining the recipe. So in my recipe, I'm giving instructions, but I'm not actually doing anything with this. When you're defining it, you don't pass in any data. You don't actually pass in data. You are just giving it arguments, which are variables that you're going to pass in later. When you call your function, this is like actually making the cake. This is when you take the recipe, you take this stuff, and put in whatever ingredients you're going to do, and then it spits out the cake. So right here I have this function, takes in 3 arguments, and all it does is just add them together, and then console.logs that. It doesn't actually return anything right now. So when I call this function, it'll be right here. Let's comment this line out. When I run it, it gives us 9. 2, 3, and 4 added together equal 9. And I can change this. I can change this to 10. 2, 3, and 10 is going to give us 15. So that's what a function does. It allows us to create some code, to write some code that we can use over and over and over and over and over again without having to write it out each time. But just declaring it does nothing by itself. If I comment out both of these function calls or run this, nothing happens. It creates this function in memory, it creates this recipe in memory, but we never actually use it. So declaring a function is whenever you are writing your recipe. Calling the function is whenever you are actually making your cake. And you'll notice we can call this function with whatever arguments we want. Right now it works with 15, it works with this is Sparta. So, and we can do whatever we want with this because our function is declared up here, and we can use it differently however we want. If I want to make a cherry cake, if I want to make a strawberry cake, if I want to make a lemon cake, if I want to make a vanilla cake, it does not matter because the recipe is the same. We're just changing out our ingredients. If I want to use lactose-free milk instead of regular milk, because my daughter and my wife and I are all lactose intolerant, we're not going to make a cake using regular milk. We're going to use the lactose-free milk. However, the recipe is the same if I'm making it with regular milk or lactose-free milk. Maybe somebody's vegan, they don't want to eat eggs, so you use some sort of an egg substitute and a milk substitute. It doesn't matter what you're going to plug in here because our function treats it all the same. It's going to make the cake following the exact same recipe every time, no matter what we put in here. So keep that in mind. Whenever you are declaring a function, you are writing the recipe, and inside of the parentheses are always going to be variables. You can have nothing. A lot of times your functions will have no variables necessary, but a lot of times they will require variables. These are always variables. They're never, ever, ever strings. Never, ever, ever will you do this. Never, ever will you put in an array like that. Never, ever, ever, ever. It's always going to be variable names. And these variable names are scoped inside of these curly brackets so that you can access them inside the curly bracket. So whatever I plug in here, right here, that's number 2. Down here, that's this with a space as a string, is going to be plugged in here. Whatever I plug in for the second argument will be put here. Whatever I plug in for the third will be put here. So if this is my milk, this is my eggs, this is my flour, then this one will always be there. My eggs will always be there. My flour will always be there. However, if I plug in flour first, then flour will be there. So let's just look at that because we want to stick with the whole recipe analogy. Let's make a cake. So I could do my func, passing in flour, eggs, and sugar. Let's comment these out so we just deal with that one and run it. Flour, eggs, sugar. Let me put some spaces to make that a little more clear. Flour, eggs, and sugar. So what if I put sugar first and put flour last? Now it's sugar, eggs, flour. This one, whatever I plug in first, will count for this argument, which I'm using down in here. Whatever I plug in second will be counted for that argument. Whatever I plug in third will be counted for that argument. And if I switch this around, if I duplicate this line, let's say I wanted to make it with, let's say we got sugar, we've got, instead of eggs, you might have, I don't know what vegans use for egg substitute, and then flour, whatever, and run it, I'm going to have 2 cakes. One of them is going to have eggs in it, one of them is not, but the recipe is the same. It does not matter to my recipe what I'm plugging in. It's just going to follow the directions it's given regardless. But this allows a lot more flexibility in my code because by writing a function, I don't have to write all of this each time. Now this is a super simple one, but a lot of times you'll have functions that are hundreds or thousands of lines long. So I can just call these functions, passing in the data or the information or the recipe ingredients that I want. Hopefully this clarifies it a little bit. Let me know if you have any further questions. Thanks.